Hi everyone, again welcome to this lecture. We will be continuing the Linux networking, the lecture number 3 today. Today's topic is going to be the file transfer protocol. So we will be learning about the file transfer protocol in depth and going into like how we can make the file transfer protocol, also known as FTP. Then we will go into more details regarding how we can enable a server to do an FTP transfer. So some of those topics will also be discussed. So before we start talking about the FTP itself, I want to give the recap from last lecture. As you know, we finished the last lecture on the IP addressing. So let's look at what we learned. So we learned the basic structure of an IP address, which is a 32-bit number comprised of 4 octet numbers. A simple example will be like 133.27.162.125. This is what is called decimal representation. You can also represent it with a binary as shown here. Each one will just get that its own binary equivalent. Sometimes it's also represented in a hexadecimal fashion, which is like 133 in hexadecimal is 85, and then the 27 becomes 1B, then the 162 becomes A2, and then 125 becomes 7B. So people simply say it as one number: 85 1B, A2 7B. Some of the licenses are all cut for the hexadecimal representation. So if you have a license for any software, the software vendor may ask you the host name where you're hosting this this licenses in the form of this hexadecimal representation. And we also saw the use of network mask, which is used to define which bits are used to describe the network part and which are used for the host. A simple notation will be like 255 or 255.224.0. In this case, we know that actually the 224 is the first 3 bits of the third octet. So hence the number of network bits is 19, and the remaining is assigned to the hosts. So let's look at based on this. Let's look at some of the activities that I want you guys to do. So here one of them is to convert the following IP address into a binary format. Fairly simple. I think like with the knowledge from the above slide, you should be able to do this fairly easily. I think like you also have the distinction between a local network and a public network, or a private network and a public network, based on the IP addresses. Now the question is, for the above IP address, what is the network address and what is the host address? What is the network part and the host part? Again, I think it's fairly simple. You should be able to figure out what is the network address and the host address. So I want you to just exercise what you learned. Now the third one that I want you to do is the following, which is I have given you this network mask. Very simple. I want you to figure out how many hosts are possible in this network. Again, I think like it will be like a trivial exercise for you, given that you are now masters of IP addressing based on the previous lecture. So with that, I'm going to go into the file transfer protocol, which is the main topic of today. So in this lecture, we will be learning about what is FTP, why do we need FTP, then how do we control the FTP, essentially what are the commands that we can use in an FTP session, how to initiate an FTP session, how to end an FTP session, things like that. And then we will also discuss the configuration of a Linux FTP server, some basic understanding of controlling the permission commands in the configuration of the Linux FTP server, and then some administrative tools. Again, I don't want to emphasize too much on the back end, the administrative aspects of it, but I still want you to understand what are the administrative challenges, so that at least you are aware of what is going on if something is asked from you. So let's look at what is FTP itself. Again, FTP, the file transfer protocol, is the way to copy large files. I emphasize again large files through the network into another system. These can be connected in a WAN configuration, LAN configuration. These are the terms that we learned in lecture 1. So based on that, we can transfer it. It's different from remote copy, which is another way to actually copy a file, because the remote copy actually explicitly opens a direct communication link between the two computers, and then it tries to copy the file over for whatever duration that the copy needs to take. FTP is all done through the network rather than relying on the direct connection between two computers, which is very difficult to establish. So let's see how we can actually control the FTP. The first thing that we want to do is to initiate an FTP session. So to initiate an FTP session, we simply type in FTP followed by the FTP server's IP address. The FTP server could be a special server on the network, or it could be any other machine which is able to receive the FTP requests. Again, you see that actually the command and the command is of the same form that we learned in probably lecture 1 when we learned the Linux basics, which is the command followed by an argument. Here the argument is actually the FTP server IP address. You can also look for any kind of options available for the FTP. There are new versions of FTP also available. Things like SFTP, which is more like a secured FTP, which encrypts the data during the transmission and then basically decrypts at the tail end. So that's another topic essentially. So you can actually look it up as a man FTP and then try to see what are the different possibilities that are available. So now that you have initiated an FTP, now you need to know how do we control, because once the FTP is initiated, usually the FTP server then asks you for an authentication. The authentication is in the form of the username and the password. Some FTP also allows you, some FTP servers allows you to do login as an anonymous user, so that it doesn't. So think about this, right? You are actually trying to log in into a different machine just for the purpose of transferring a file over. As long as the file is secure, the remote machine doesn't need you to have an established account, because the whole point here is you're going to send this file, and basically at that point you are going to cut off all your links between you and the remote server, and then the remote server can go on doing whatever it is, whatever it wants to do. So in that sense, you don't want to establish an identity in that remote server, so that all the time it checks whether that person is there. So FTP sites do allow anonymous FTP. So essentially, so anybody who does not have an identity established in the remote server becomes an anonymous user. So in most cases, in some of the settings actually you can log in as anonymous and password is nothing, and then you can log in. In some cases they still want to log who is the user that is trying to FTP. So they will require some form of identification. Usually the identification is your email address. So the password that they require for an anonymous access will be your email address. So you can say like FTP, FTP server name, and then it will ask you for a username, and usually it says like default is anonymous. In that case, like you can just click enter, and that takes the anonymous as the user, and then it will say like okay password. Now give the password, and they will typically say that put your email address as your password if you're logging in as anonymous. So then you just type in the email address and then you click on it, then immediately the prompt will change. The prompt becomes FTP greater than. So now you know that you are in the middle of the FTP session. So now let's see how once we started the session, how do we proceed at that point. So there are several commands that are available. You can think of the FTP as very similar to your shell. So in a shell you can just have the greater than symbol. Now with FTP you will say like FTP and then greater than symbol, which gives you kind of a command interpreter window. So let's see like what commands that we can type in. Again, this command interpreter will be a very limited subset of the Linux shell. So the number of commands that you can type is also limited. So let's see. This command that you already know, cd, which is the change directory. Only difference between what you know, what you knew earlier, and this time is when you type cd, it actually changes directory in the remote server. It's no longer changing the directory from your side. In fact, typically, like when you log in into an FTP site, wherever you started with the current home directory, that will still be preserved. So say like you are in your home directory like /home/xyz, and then you started the FTP server. Your local directory is still pointing to /home/xyz. Whereas in the remote directory, it goes into some place, either just the slash, which is the root directory. From there, you can then do a cd to move to any other directory. And cd dot dot will again go back up one level, but now in the remote server and not in your the current directory. And pwd, that the other command that you are very familiar with, the present working directory, that again it points to the present working directory of the remote server as opposed to your side. And then all these commands ls will work on the remote server but not on your side. So even if you type ls, you cannot see any of your files in the current directory, but it will display the files from the FTP site or the remote site. So then what can we do? Like with so now that you know, like okay, you can change the directory from the root to the /a in the remote server. Assume that you are still okay with the /home/xyz, and you want to transfer a file called pqr into the remote directory /a. So you did cd to /a, and then you did a pwd, and it prints like /a. So and then you do an ls, and it lists nothing. Basically, there are no files in that remote server. Now you need to copy your pqr into that directory. So the way that we do it is using the following commands. The transfer commands are shown here. We typically start with specifying either one of these two options, either binary or ASCII. This tells the FTP tool to assume that the file, whatever that we are going to transfer, is going to be a binary format. If you type in ASCII, then it knows that it needs to transmit as an ASCII format. The difference here is essentially like even though the data may be like very similar, like ones and zeros, the binary format will require like some special handling in the sense that you cannot you have to make sure that the checksum is the same and things like that. Whereas ASCII there is some leniency there. So the first thing that you do is based on what kind of file PQR is, you set one of these. You either type in binary or ASCII. Let's assume that the PQR is a binary file. So we typed binary. As a short form, you can just type bin. Bin is short form for binary. So now that you indicated to the FTP server that the file that you want to transfer is going to be a binary. Now how do we transfer? So if you just say put and then followed by PQR, then this PQR from the current directory, which is /home/xyz, will be transferred over to /a, which is the remote server. So fairly easy. You can also do get. The get command will actually get a file from the remote server back to your local PC. So here again, get is also the same thing. Get followed by file name, and then the file name will come to your site. Now the next command is the change mode command. Change mode command is very similar to the command that we saw earlier in the previous slide. Change mode command changes the file permission on the remote server as opposed to your machine. del, this is used to delete a specific file on the remote server. So again, this is another command that is just used to remove one of the files that you copy. And finally, the byte command will end your FTP session and it will bring you back to the original form. So now we understood how the transfer works, and it's fairly easy to understand how actually the transfer happens. But now there is another question as to, okay, now we are originally in that /home/xyz, that is my home directory, but you know the PQR, instead of in my /home/xyz, it's now in a different directory. It's a /home/xyz/ NA. So now how do we go to that particular directory, the local, because we already started the FTP session. So let's look at some of those local access commands. So LCD is a command that can change the directory in the local PC. So if you just type LCD followed by say NA, and then it will take from /home/xyz to /home/xyz/NA. And LCD ... will again go back to that one level up, which is /home/xyz. And LPWD will now print out your current directory within your local PC. So we can now transfer. Now what if we have like multiple files and we need to copy that all the files to the server? So FTP provides some shortcut commands, which is mput, which copies multiple files using a wildcard. So here the wildcard which is specified is the asterisk, which is stands for pretty much all the files in the local PC. So all the files in the local PC will be taken and dropped into the server with mput star command. And mget also copies multiple files from the server to the local PC. And again, the usage is fairly simple. It's mget star. So now that we understood the basics of an FTP protocol, let's look at some of the challenges in terms of the system administrator. So the first thing is to configure the FTP server. So here you can actually configure. I mean, these commands actually lists here are how we can configure the FTP server so that we can fine tune some of the access rights available for the users. So one such command is the FTP access. Which will set the access from the /etc file essentially. So this is actually in the FTP access .ctl file, which is a control file, which can actually which you can use it to deny or accept certain hosts from where, like, I mean, you need to you can receive or send the FTP request. Actually, usually make receive the FTP request. So essentially, like, I mean, this the FTP access lets you to allow or deny, and also like specify more specific operations like read only, write only, and then the user only, group only kind of permissions that limit the FTP access for a particular group or a particular IP address that tries to FTP. This also, like, I mean, you can use this command actually to control the access at the directory level essentially. So you can actually use the FTP access to specify for a given directory or a given file what should be the access rights that it needs to have. Then the other commands are the FTP conversions, the FTP hosts, the transfer log, which is X for log, and then the essentially, like, I mean, the in Red Hat initially Red Hat installation, the users can find these files in the /etc, and then the last one, the transfer log, in the /var/log. As I mentioned, like, so basically the FTP access will be a CTL file essentially, which tells the users which files are accessible, which directories are accessible, to put various files into those directories. So the FTP conversions can be used to change a particular file into the various things basically. For example, you can compress the file, you can visit the file, things like that. and then the you can also like use the FTP host essentially, like I mean use the particular the type of hosts or that or which host can receive the FTP messages that's decided, that's stored in the FTP host file. So with these files you can actually control who is connecting to your machine, when they can connect, where they can connect, and also we saw that the FTP access, using the FTP access file you can also limit what can they access. So in that way, like I mean FTP file is the most significant because it contains the configuration options, and if you misconfigure those files that can also cause a denial of service. And some of the viruses, you can say, think of it, they can actually probably like change the FTP access file so that it can cause a denial of service. Again, the FTP protocol is kind of used. It's supposed to be very secure in the sense that it's not that easy to get into these systems. So even though like you may think that okay, this can be easily affected. Number one is FTP access is first of all used in a very specific situation where you want the large file transfer, and then the second thing is it's already like quite secure, so you won't be able to do any kind of changes to the FTP access files. So FTP access file is the primary means of controlling who can access the server. This we saw already. The ability to control the user access is a critical component in fine tuning the anonymous FTP server. Again, the anonymous FTP server, we talked about it in the previous section, which is essentially the FTP server where you can log in as an anonymous person and then control it that way. Basically, like do the transfer that way. So so now let's look at some more details regarding the how do we do this FTP access. So again, we talked about the user access. Essentially, like I mean, again, the way that we want to control the access is by defining the class, essentially, the class of users. So one is the class command itself defines the class of users who can access the FTP server. There is also the auto group command, which provides tighter control of anonymous users. It does this by automatically assigning them to certain group permission. So when they log in, you can say that okay, hey, they are treat them as similar to my X group, so that they inherit all the permissions that are available to the X group users. And then the limit command essentially enables one to control the number of users according to the class and time of the day. So if they belong to a certain class, and then basically like I mean you can also say that okay, for this time of day I want only like 10 users who can do FTP. And this is usually like I mean this is limited through the hardware availability. So how many ports that a user can open up in a machine will limit the number of people who can access the machine um, directly like at the same time essentially. So let's look at some more commands for controlling the user access. Now a deny command essentially like this one specifically tells like which users uh, or which host to deny. Um, so again this is basically like you can limit them by those IP addresses, and then the login fails command enables one to disconnect the clients after they have reached the predetermined number of failed login attempts. Typically by default this number is 5. There is this website which has a lot of FAQs. I also find it that some of the IBM sites are interesting, and it has a lot more information. So again, to recap, the the FTP access is limited through this FTP access control file, which usually we keep it under /etc/ftp access.ctl. We may be able to actually access this and try to find out what are the entries in that file. The entries are usually these commands that we talked about in the last 3 sections, 3 slides. The commands usually are allow, deny, read only, write only, read write, user only, group only, and then there are a few other commands as well that we saw earlier. So the allow, I mean the typically like the way that you will be the syntax for the FTP access command file is keyword followed by the value, and keyword it's usually like it's one line, the keyword colon value comma value comma value. So you can specify saying that allow, and then you can colon host 1, host 2, host 3, whereas those hosts are the IP addresses of the various hosts. You can also say like the read only, and then you can give the directory name, and so that those directories are kept as read only, and then you can also say like user only, and there are other commands herald and motd or motd. These things essentially like you can um, specify, and then the way that you can control like whether particular user can be given a group permission. It's essentially like you can use the user only command, and then again that has like username, all the usernames, and then you can specifically say group only, and then just the group name. The anonymous user essentially like it's also like you can specify the anonymous in the user only, and then that usually like the username is you can get it from the /etc/password. I gave you an exercise I think like last week to actually use this /etc/password. I hope you did that exercise and actually found out what is inside that /etc/password, which could give you more insights as to how to what are the usernames, and then the group names similarly are stored in /etc/group. So you can see that actually like all these different access level items are stored in /etc, which is under the root directory. So now let's move on. Let's look at how we can control the permissions. So we have some more commands essentially, like which is delete, which tells the server whether the FTP clients are authorized to delete files that reside on the server. So again, continuing that, these are other commands which we can code in, so that that explicitly tells whether the users may be able to delete some files or not. And then you can also have overwrite, which controls the FTP clients, whether the FTP clients can upload files and replace what is already there in the system. Then we have other commands also, for example the path filter command, which essentially enforces restrictions on the file names that can be uploaded. So if somebody names some file name as a file name with extension, like, so those are the other things that we can control using the path filter command. So we can only allow certain files if you know that okay the virus file contains like the extension VS, then let's say like let's ban that file, so that we can filter only the files which don't have that extension. The upload command determines the client's permission for placing a file in a specific directory. And let's see some more administrative commands. One is the FTP shut. This eases the FTP server shutdown procedures. So essentially, like it is useful when running the server, the FTP server all the time. FTP who displays the active FTP users in the system. So again, the FTP FTP shut actually provides the automated shutdown, so that quickly you can disconnect the FTP server and take it offline. It actually creates a control file in the same /etc area that's called /etc/shut msg, which is shut message. Again, this particular command has the various arguments as well as options. So I'll ask you to take a look at it when you get a chance. Now there are few more commands actually which I will briefly talk about. One is FTP DCTL. This is more like a control program for professional file transfer protocol, and this control program is used to control the daemon when it is running. So essentially, like so that is another way to another one that you can use. Then FTP count is another one. This actually gives just the current number of connections for each of the FTP sites essentially. So this shows the number of connections per server and also the virtual host and anonymous configuration as defined in the configuration file. Again, please look at this website to get more information regarding these commands. Then the other one is the FTP top, which displays the current status of the FTP session, and it also again is very similar to the top command that we learned in the beginning lectures. This also continuously updates until you press Q to quit the system. Then there are other commands essentially, like so ft FTP quota, that is to manage the quota that's how much a user can take. FTP scrub is another one which removes the scoreboard file for the professional FTP command. So as I mentioned, the FTP program can have like multiple flavors. The SFTP that I mentioned, or just the regular FTP. There is also like something called the WSFTP. So here this is essentially like the WSFTP is more GUI based system, where it shows both the local system and the remote system, and then you can actually use the GUI to navigate to various levels. Even though like it says that the other FTP clients are very similar, you can think of like just the FTP is the basic one which does not have any UI, and then all these things are much more fancier, and they will have the UIs that are shown here. So I think we come to the end of this lecture. So this should give you a good overview of FTP. So we started by looking at FTP and looking at how we can actually do a file transfer. Mainly like we studied how to initiate the transfer through FTP command. Then how do we use various commands like cd, pwd to look at what are the things that are there in the remote site. Then we also studied how to transfer the files using the put and the get commands, and also we did that ASCII versus binary. Then we did talk about how to navigate in the local context, which is LCD. If you are using this one of these the newer GUI based FTP like WSFTP, you don't need to know those commands because you can easily move from one directory to the other using the GUI itself. Then we went into like some of the administrative stuff. Mainly we looked at the 4 files that are used for controlling the access of FTP, and we learned more details regarding the FTP access file itself. How do we write, how do we code in the things so that it can take in like it can give permissions to certain users, allow certain people, deny certain ones, and then also like change the group permission for an anonymous user. So then we also like learned about various FTP commands from the administrator's perspective, how they can use it. One thing that we noticed was all these various files are residing in the /etc area. which is very common for Linux to easily find these files and work on them. Finally, we looked at this the newer APP clients like WSFTP, which simplifies a lot of interaction and simplifies a lot of commands. So I think that's pretty much it for today. We will take it up from this point in the next lecture. Thank you very much for listening.